The Philippine island of Luzon sits under heavy clouds on the morning of January 27, 1945. American forces have landed at Lingayen Gulf 3 weeks earlier. General Douglas MacArthur's 6th Army is pushing south toward Manila, 100 miles away. Japanese units are withdrawing inland, destroying bridges, mining roads, collapsing into defensive positions. 30 miles behind Japanese lines, near the town of Cabanatuan, 513 American prisoners of war are waiting to die. They have been held at Camp Cabanatuan since 1942. Survivors of Bataan, survivors of Corregidor, survivors of the Death March. 3 years of starvation rations, disease, forced labor, and systematic brutality. They weigh between 80 and 110 pounds. Many cannot walk without assistance. Some are blind from malnutrition. Others have malaria that never fully leaves. The camp sits on flat agricultural land, surrounded by rice paddies and scattered vegetation. A single road runs east from the highway toward the compound. The perimeter is marked by barbed wire and wooden guard towers. Japanese guards number roughly 220, a mix of regular infantry and support personnel. They know American forces are advancing. They know what retreat means. Intelligence reports from Filipino guerrillas have reached 6th Army headquarters. The reports describe prisoner executions at other camps as Japanese forces withdraw. At Puerto Princesa, on Palawan Island, 150 American POWs were herded into air raid shelters, doused with gasoline, and burned alive. 11 men escaped. 139 died. 6th Army staff officers study maps of Cabanatuan. The camp is 25 miles from the nearest American unit. The route passes through terrain held by Japanese forces retreating from the north. The main highway between Cabanatuan and the American lines carries Japanese convoys moving south every day. Trucks, armor, infantry columns, thousands of troops in motion. A raid is possible. But the variables are severe: distance, enemy presence, the condition of the prisoners, extraction logistics, timing. On January 26th, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Mucci receives orders to move his unit forward. Mucci commands the 6th Ranger Battalion, 121 men trained in reconnaissance and direct action. They have been held in reserve during the Lingayen landings. Now they are being tasked with something outside standard doctrine. Mucci is told to prepare for a mission behind enemy lines. The objective: reach Camp Cabanatuan and extract every living American prisoner before Japanese forces execute them or American artillery advances into range. The Rangers begin moving toward the front at dusk on January 27th. They march on foot, weapons loaded, rations packed for 3 days. No vehicles. Movement discipline is absolute. They pass through American artillery positions and forward infantry checkpoints, then continue into contested territory where the front line blurs into scattered Japanese units and Filipino civilians caught between armies. With the Rangers are 2 officers from the Alamo Scouts, an elite reconnaissance unit that has been operating behind Japanese lines for months. Captain Juan Pahota commands 300 Filipino guerrillas who control territory around Cabanatuan. He has already sent men to observe the camp. They report guard routines, tower positions, prisoner locations, and a critical complication. Approximately 800 Japanese soldiers are camped at a village called Cabu, 1 mile northeast of the prison. They are part of a retreating division. They have tanks, they have heavy weapons, and they sit directly between the Rangers' planned approach route and the camp itself. The mission parameters are narrowing. The Rangers must cover 25 miles through enemy territory, avoid contact with Japanese patrols, link up with Filipino guerrillas they have never worked with, assault a fortified camp, evacuate 500 prisoners who cannot walk, and withdraw before 800 enemy soldiers 1 mile away can respond. Weather conditions are deteriorating. Cloud cover is heavy, but rain has not started. The temperature is warm but dropping at night. Visibility will be limited. Moonlight will be minimal. The terrain between the American lines and Cabanatuan is open farmland, offering little concealment during daylight. Mucci meets with his officers and the Alamo Scout captains. They study aerial reconnaissance photos taken 2 days earlier. The photos show the camp layout, guard positions, and the road network. They show the Japanese encampment at Cabu. They show rice paddies that must be crossed in the final approach. The plan begins forming. Timing, coordination, routes, contingencies. Everything depends on speed and surprise. The prisoners must be extracted before the Japanese at Cabu realize what is happening. Once shooting starts, the window closes. The Rangers continue moving south through the night of January 27th. By dawn on January 28th, they are 15 miles from Cabanatuan. They rest in concealed positions during daylight, hidden from Japanese patrols moving along the highway. Scouts move forward to confirm routes and enemy positions. The mission is now 12 hours from execution. 513 prisoners are still alive. The clock is running. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Mucci is 33 years old. He graduated from West Point in 1936 and has commanded the 6th Ranger Battalion since its activation in September 1944. His unit trained in New Guinea for 4 months before landing at Luzon. They practiced night infiltration, close quarters combat, and small unit tactics. None of that training involved evacuating 500 emaciated prisoners under enemy fire. His second in command is Captain Robert Prince. Prince will lead the actual assault element. He is 26 years old, a graduate of Stanford University, commissioned through ROTC. He has no combat experience before the Philippines. Now he is planning a raid that requires perfect timing and zero margin for error. The Alamo Scouts with the Rangers are Captain Robert Sumner and Lieutenant William Nellist. The Scouts are a hand-picked unit trained to operate independently behind enemy lines. They gather intelligence, mark targets, and guide larger formations. Sumner and Nellist have spent the last 6 months moving through Japanese-held territory in the Philippines. They know the terrain. They know Filipino guerrilla networks. They know Japanese patrol patterns. Captain Juan Pajota commands the guerrillas who control the area around Cabanatuan. He is a former Philippine Army officer who refused to surrender in 1942. His men number around 300, armed with a mix of American weapons, captured Japanese rifles, and locally made firearms. They have been harassing Japanese supply lines and gathering intelligence for American forces since the Lingayen landings. Pajota knows every trail, every village, every river crossing between the coast and Cabanatuan. On the morning of January 28th, Mucci meets with Pajota at a guerrilla camp 5 miles from the prison. Maps are spread on the ground. Aerial photos are passed around. The Alamo Scouts present their reconnaissance findings from the previous 48 hours. The camp perimeter measures roughly 600 yards by 800 yards. The main gate faces west. Guard towers are positioned at each corner and at intervals along the fence line. Approximately 60 prisoners are housed in the hospital compound on the north side. The remaining 450 are spread across barracks on the east and south sections. Japanese guards live in structures near the main gate. The 800 Japanese soldiers at Cabu remain the critical problem. They are camped along the Cabu River, 1 mile from the prison. If they respond quickly, they can reach the camp in less than 10 minutes. The Rangers will need more time than that to breach the wire, locate the prisoners, and begin evacuation. Pajota proposes a solution. His guerrillas will establish a blocking position on the road between Cabu and the prison. They will engage any Japanese force attempting to reinforce the camp. This will buy the Rangers time. But it also means Pajota's men will face an enemy force 3 times their size, with superior weapons and armored support. Mucci accepts the plan. There is no alternative. The assault timeline is set. The Rangers will move into position after dark on January 29th. Hour is 1930 hours, 7:30 p.m. The attack must occur at night to provide concealment during the approach. But it cannot be too late, because the withdrawal will take hours and must be completed before dawn. Captain Prince divides the Ranger force into assault teams. First platoon will breach the main gate and neutralize guards in the western section. Second platoon will hit the guard quarters and cut off Japanese reinforcement from inside the camp. Weapons squads will provide suppressive fire from positions outside the wire. Bazooka teams will target guard towers and any structures where resistance forms. The Alamo Scouts will lead the approach march and guide the Rangers into their final assault positions. They will mark lanes through the rice paddies and designate targets. Once shooting starts, they will move into the prisoner barracks and identify men who can walk versus those who need to be carried. Filipino guerrillas, under Captain Eduardo Joson, will establish a second blocking position on the highway south of the camp. This covers the withdrawal route and prevents Japanese forces moving north from interdicting the evacuation. Joson has 90 men. They will face any Japanese convoy that happens to be on the road when the shooting starts. Pajota's 300 guerrillas will move into their blocking position at Cabu Bridge on the afternoon of January 29th. They will dig fighting positions and prepare demolitions on the bridge itself. If the Japanese advance, Pajota will attempt to destroy the bridge and force them to cross the river on foot. Transportation is the final logistics problem. 500 prisoners cannot walk 25 miles. Muchi has requested supply drops of medical supplies and stretchers, but the quantities will be insufficient. Pajota arranges for 26 carabao carts to be positioned along the withdrawal route. The carts are slow, pulled by water buffalo, but they can carry men who cannot walk. Additional guerrillas are assigned to assist prisoners during the march back to American lines. The Rangers rest during the day on January 28th. They clean weapons, redistribute ammunition, and receive final briefings. Each man carries extra rations for the prisoners. Medics prepare aid bags with sulfanilamide powder, morphine, bandages, and anti-malarial tablets. Communication is limited to hand signals and whispered orders. Radio contact with 6th Army Headquarters will be maintained by a single SCR-694 radio carried by the communications team. On the afternoon of January 29th, the Rangers begin their final approach. They move through dense vegetation along trails marked by Alamo Scouts. Japanese patrols pass within 300 yards. The Rangers freeze in place, weapons ready, waiting for the patrols to move on. They do. The column continues. By late afternoon, the Rangers are in position 1 mile from the camp. They lie flat in tall grass, watching the prison through field glasses. Guard routines are observed. Shift changes noted. Prisoners move slowly between barracks, skeletal figures in ragged clothing. Pajota's guerrillas reach Cabu Bridge and begin preparing their ambush. Joson's men take positions along the highway. The blocking forces are set. The assault element is ready. The sun drops toward the horizon. Muchi checks his watch. 3 hours until hour. Darkness comes at 18:45 hours. The Rangers move forward through rice paddies, crawling the final 800 yards to the camp perimeter. Water soaks through their uniforms. They move in silence, weapons held above the mud. Alamo Scouts lead, marking positions with barely visible hand signals. At 19:15 hours, a P-61 Black Widow night fighter from the 5th Air Force makes a low pass over the camp. The aircraft circles twice, engine noise drowning out any sound from the approaching Rangers. Japanese guards look up, distracted. The plane pulls away to the south. Muchi had requested the diversion. It works. The assault teams reach their positions at 19:25 hours. First platoon is stacked outside the main gate. Second platoon is spread along the northern wire. Bazooka teams have line of sight to guard towers. Weapons squads are prone in the grass, covering the barracks area. Every man knows his target. No one moves. At 19:29 hours, Captain Prince raises his hand. 1 minute. At 19:30 hours exactly, the bazookas fire. The first round hits the guard tower at the northwest corner. The structure collapses in flame. The second round hits the gate. Wood and wire, explode outward. The third round hits the Japanese quarters near the entrance. The Rangers are through the gate before the echoes fade. First platoon moves left, engaging guards running from barracks. Second platoon goes right, clearing structures with grenades and rifle fire. The Japanese guards are caught between positions, some armed, most not. Resistance forms near the command building. A Browning automatic rifle team suppresses it. The building is hit with white phosphorus grenades. Flames spread. Inside the prisoner barracks, men hear the explosions and hit the floor. Some think it is American artillery. Some think the Japanese are executing them. Then they hear American voices shouting, "Get up! Get out! We are taking you home!" The Alamo Scouts and Rangers move through each barracks, pulling men to their feet. Some prisoners cannot stand. They are carried. Others walk on their own, moving faster than they have in 3 years. The compound is chaos. Fire from burning buildings. Smoke drifting across the wire. Guards scattered or dead. Americans everywhere, pushing prisoners toward the gate. At Cabu Bridge, Pajota hears the shooting. Minutes later, he hears engines. Japanese trucks are moving toward the bridge from the encampment. Pajota's guerrillas open fire. The lead truck stops. Soldiers dismount and return fire. More trucks arrive. The Japanese begin organizing an assault across the river. Pajota has placed automatic weapons covering the bridge approaches. His men fire in controlled bursts, conserving ammunition. The Japanese bring up mortars. Rounds begin falling near the guerrilla positions. Pajota holds his ground. The bridge must stay closed. Inside the camp, the last prisoners are being moved out. Rangers conduct final sweeps through barracks, checking for men too weak to call out. They find 11 in the hospital who were missed in the first pass. All 11 are carried. The evacuation column forms outside the wire. 513 prisoners, 121 Rangers, dozens of guerrillas assisting. The column stretches 300 yards. Carabao carts are loaded with men who cannot walk. Others lean on Rangers or each other. At 2000 hours, 30 minutes after the assault began, the last Ranger clears the camp. The column begins moving west, away from the fighting at Cabu Bridge. Japanese fire is intensifying there. Mortars, machine guns. Pajota is holding, but cannot hold indefinitely. The withdrawal is slow. Prisoners stumble in darkness. Carts overturn in rice paddies and must be righted. Rangers carry men on their backs. The column stops repeatedly to reorganize. Progress is measured in yards per minute. At Cabu Bridge, the Japanese launch their assault. They cross the river under covering fire and push toward Pajota's positions. The guerrillas fall back 50 yards, then hold again. The bridge is blown. The explosion lights the sky. Japanese advance slows, but does not stop. By 2200 hours, the prisoner column is 2 miles from the camp. They reach the Carabao carts positioned by Pajota's men. More prisoners are loaded. The column continues. Behind them, gunfire at Cabu Bridge is fading. Pajota is withdrawing, mission complete. At 0100 hours on January 30th, the column reaches American lines. Forward positions of the 6th Army see them coming and hold fire. Medics rush forward. Prisoners collapse. Some are crying. Some are silent. All are alive. The prisoners are evacuated to field hospitals by truck and ambulance. Doctors find severe malnutrition, beriberi, dysentery, malaria, untreated wounds, and injuries from years of forced labor. Average weight is 90 pounds. Some men weigh 70. Emergency treatment begins immediately. Plasma, antibiotics, food in measured portions to avoid refeeding syndrome. 2 prisoners die within 24 hours of rescue. Their bodies could not recover from 3 years of starvation. 511 survive. The Rangers suffered 2 killed in action during the raid. Captain James Fisher and Corporal Roy Sweezy died in the initial assault. 21 Filipinos from Pajota's and Joseon's guerrilla units were killed, holding the blocking positions. Japanese casualties are estimated at 523. The camp was completely destroyed. General MacArthur, personally meets with the rescued prisoners at base hospitals. Photographs are taken. Letters are sent to families in the United States. The story reaches American newspapers within days. The raid becomes front-page news. The 6th Ranger Battalion continues operations in Luzon through the end of the war. Lieutenant Colonel Mucci receives the Distinguished Service Cross. Captain Prince receives the same. Members of the Alamo Scouts are decorated. Pajota and his guerrillas receive recognition from the United States Army, though many details of their role remain classified until years later. Camp Cabanatuan never reopens. The site is abandoned after the raid. Japanese forces evacuate the area as American units advance toward Manila. The prison is left to decay. Years later, a memorial is erected on the grounds. The names of those who died there are recorded. The names of those who were rescued are remembered. Of the 511 prisoners extracted alive, most returned to the United States by mid-1945. They are hospitalized for months. Some recover fully. Others carry permanent damage from malnutrition and disease. Many never speak publicly about their captivity. The raid on Cabanatuan remains the most successful rescue operation of American prisoners of war in United States military history. It demonstrated coordination between conventional forces, special operations units, and indigenous resistance fighters. It proved that deep penetration missions behind enemy lines could succeed with proper planning and precise execution. 511 men were supposed to die in a prison camp in the Philippines. They did not. They came home.